last week, but it ended up being my theme for Shabbos morning and my theme for the Pirkei Avos. And basically, something that the Alter Rebbe speaks about over and over in Tanya, especially the first book of Tanya, which is the first book, the 53 chapters, which is also referred to as the Sefer Shar Beidanim. It was written, says the Alter Rebbe, for the average person. And by the average person, the Alter Rebbe establishes in the first 12 prakim of Tanya that the average person, as opposed to the very unique person referred to as a tzaddik, the Beinoni, the average person, is one that struggles with Yetzer Hara, or with his what's referred to in Tanya as the Nefesh HaBahamis, the basic animal soul, the animalistic tendencies of a person. And that's what we are doing here in this world. It's this constant battle between these two different inclinations that are constantly tugging against each other. And we are making the decision which direction we want to go. Okay, so that's the Beinoni. Now, from Perek Yud Beis until the end of the first book of Tanya, until chapter 53, basically the Alter Rebbe is helping this so-called Beinoni, the person who spends his life struggling in his service to Hashem, with eitzes, ideas, ways in order to be successful, to be able to succeed in developing a good relationship with Hashem that includes also the Yira. Yira is basically having this conscious sense of awe of Hashem. And it has many different elements to it. And also what's called Ava, the love of Hashem, wanting to be close to Hashem. Okay? So that's all part of the struggle in Avodas Hashem that the Beinoni struggles with. And the Alter Rebbe holds our hand and guides us along a path towards success in these endeavors. If I doze off in the middle of class, it's because I just came from a red-eye flight from Mexico, so please, I'm struggling just to keep my focus there. So didn't really sleep much, as best as you can sleep on the plane. So this is Tanya. Now, the last week, so I focused on what the Alter Rebbe calls the Ava Mesuteres. One of the things the Alter Rebbe tells the Beinoni is that you should know that if you just judge yourself from what's going on in your consciousness, right? That which I'll say is on the surface, right? The things that we are aware of, our awarenesses, and our emotional involvement in whatever's going on, and in our intellectual involvement. These are all elements of the open consciousness, okay? And that is the arena in which we serve Hashem. That is the arena of the Beinoni. And that's where the whole service of Hashem takes place, because that's where the struggles are taking place. But what does the Alter Rebbe tell us? The Alter Rebbe tells us that there's another dimension. There's a hidden dimension. And in spite of the fact that hidden dimension doesn't necessarily expose itself, it doesn't manifest itself necessarily in our consciousness, the Alter Rebbe is telling us it is there. And by virtue of the fact that it's there, we can take advantage of that, and it's very beneficial. It's very beneficial knowing that it's there. So, one of the things about some of these very fundamental things in our relationship with Hashem, such as belief in Hashem, emunah, right? Which is something that we have to be consciously aware, bitachon, something that we have to consciously engage in. And then the things that I mentioned before, Avo, Yiro, love of Hashem, Bigana of Hashem. The moment you know that those elements actually already exist, but in perhaps a different dimension, as opposed to the awareness dimension of consciousness, it helps. It helps a lot, okay? It's not about having to develop emunah, develop bitachon, develop Abbas Hashem, develop Yiras Hashem. It's not about that. The Alter Rebbe tells us that in this hidden dimension, they already exist. And what is a Yid doing in his service to Hashem? He's bringing it from that dimension into his conscious dimension. So last week, we got into this whole idea of dimensions that don't necessarily just, show themselves. They don't present themselves necessarily. And I gave examples from theoretical physics where some of the deepest questions of the universe are being solved, at least theoretically, by taking into account different dimensions that by definition can actually not be observed. They cannot, only by the effect that they seem to be having, and they can't be measured. And yet it's such a fundamental part of this whole field in physics called theoretical physics. So I just mentioned that last week, maybe spent a little bit too much time talking about it, but it was in the spirit of bringing scientific models, right, such as they exist in physics, that support the idea, the notion that to explain what's happening, we have to take into account certain hidden dimensions. Okay, so like in Perikil Ches of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, how does a very simple Jew, not learned at all, and perhaps not so perfect in his observance of Torah, mitzvahs, etc., and yet it's been demonstrated over and over throughout history that particular Jew is not any less likely to immediately react to a situation with pure Mesiras Nefesh, willing to give his life, with no hesitation. No hesitation. Where's that coming from? It's a point that the Alter Rebbe makes in chapter 18, right? Where's that coming from? So you see a person who sits and learns Torah all day and he's a very refined Jewish person and on a very high spiritual level. Oh, okay, so we can understand that he has Mesiras Nefesh. What's interesting is that from all this evidence that we observe, perhaps it's anecdotal to some degree, but it's things that we observe over and over and over. Not only does the simple Jew show that same willingness to sacrifice his life, right? He does it, and it seems that he can do it with less hesitation even than the learned Talmud Chacham, etc., etc. This is testimony to that hidden dimension. The hidden dimension. So one of the things that I mentioned last week, based on the Perik of Tanya that we had just finished learning in Chitas a couple of days before, is that for that hidden dimension to actually manifest itself consciously, and it's important that it does, because as I mentioned before, that's the arena in which we serve Hashem. We're serving Hashem with our consciousness. We serve Hashem, with things that we actually experience and feel, right? So if we have to experience Abbas Hashem, we have to experience Yiras Hashem. We need to feel it, right? And the Alter Rebbe is giving us these tools, how to bring it to the surface, feel it more. And at the end of the day, the person says, okay, I followed the method, but how do I know that I'm actually not fooling myself, right? Okay, I believe that there's that hidden dimension, and the more I work at it, the more it will, like I said, come to the surface. But is it real? How do I know it's real? And the Alter Rebbe makes this amazing statement. The Alter Rebbe says, "No, what do you mean? The only question, the only basis for questioning it is if you question that hidden dimension. But as soon as you recognize that hidden dimension, as soon as you accept that it actually exists, right, says the Alter Rebbe, then it is absolutely 100% real." I mean, the Alter Rebbe, the words of the Alter Rebbe, right? Even though you may think that this is perhaps only your imagination, says the Alter Rebbe, Al Yachush, don't let that bother you. Don't let that drag you down. And here the Alter Rebbe uses such words that, knowing that the Alter Rebbe was so careful with every single word, right? There's the story of how the Alter Rebbe literally, he labored over whether to add a word, take out a word. I'm not sure it was right here, but it was, I think, maybe somewhere else where he uses this term. Emes la'amitai, says the Alter Rebbe. It is the absolute truth, that limited degree of Ava that you manage to bring into your consciousness, to bring into your heart, to bring into your feelings, that you are concerned that maybe it's just your imagination, says the Alter Rebbe. No, based on that hidden dimension, guess what? Emes la'amitai. These are very, very strong words. Emes la'amitai. It's not just true, it's double true. It's absolute true. That's what the term in Hebrew, emes la'amitai. Emes means true. Emes la'amitai means it's absolute truth. It's not relative truth, it's absolute truth, if there's such a thing as relative truth. Anyway, that's just recapping a little bit of last week Shiur, and the Alter Rebbe also this week. Well, up until Perik, let's say Mem Zayin, already the Alter Rebbe was going into a little bit of a different area. So we have about 5 parakim, Mem Aleph, Mem Beis, Mem Gimel, Mem Dal, where the Alter Rebbe is really honing in on the effects of this hidden dimension. Okay, what does this have to do with Shavuos? So I want to tell you, there's something really interesting when it comes to Shavuos. So this is going to be a little bit, we're going to discuss a little bit of interesting halachic element of the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Okay? Now, all of the Yom Tovim that we have, which, by the way, we just finished reading in last week's Parsha, Parshas Emor. In Parshas Emor, the Torah literally sets out the exact amount of Yom Tovim that we have and the days of the year when these Yom Tovim are to take place, and the restriction of not doing work on those days. So so it starts off actually with Shabbos, and then we have Pesach, and then there's Shavuos, and then there's Rosh Hashanah, and then there's Yom Kippur, and then there's Sukkot, the first day, and then the last day of Sukkot. So these are all what's called the Moyadim, designated times, and this is the Parsha of Eila Moyadei Hashem. These are the designated times. Okay? Eila Moyadei Hashem. So when it comes to all of the Yom Tovim, each one of them is designated by a date on the calendar. Okay? Rosh Hashanah, first day of Tishrei. Yom Kippur, 10th day of Tishrei. Pesach, 14th, starting on the 14th with the Korban Pesach, and then the 15th is the first day of Yom. The one Yom Tov that does not have a designated day in the calendar is the Yom Tov of Shavuos. The way we designate the day for Shavuos is we have Pesach, that's the 15th day of Nisan, right? And then count the Sfira. And then when you finish the Sfira of 49 days, on the 50th day, that is Shavuos. So how does the Torah designate when is this Mayed, this designated time, when should it be observed? Doesn't give you a day of the month. It tells you count 50 days from the first day of Sukkot, of Pesach. Okay. What's interesting about this is that in our calendars that we have, the ones that you get in the mail before every, around the high holiday time. So it's always on the same date, the 6th of Sivan. But that's not absolutely necessarily so. It is nowadays because we have a set calendar. And by a set calendar, I mean that the Jewish months, they vacillate between 29 days and 30 days. Some months are 29, some are 30, right? And that every month is subject to being either 29 or 30 days. I'm not going to go into a whole discussion of why that is. It has to do with because our months are based on the lunar cycle, and the lunar cycle is not 29, it's not 30, it's approximately 29 and a half. But we can't make months by half a day and say that Rosh Chodesh begins halfway through the 30th day. So it's either the 30th day is part of the previous month, and then we have a month of 30 days, or we say, no, month ends after 29, and then the 30th day is the beginning of the next month. Okay. Being that whether a month is 29 or 30 is not set, that we could, for this we need a series of a few shiurim, of halacha shiurim, in order to cover that topic. But bottom line, it's not set. Okay, if it's not set, then depending on how many days Nisan has, right, the days following Pesach until the end of the month of Nisan, and then the month of Iyar, right, depending how many days, the 50th day will not necessarily be on the 6th of Sivan. It could be the 5th of Sivan. If, let's say, both Nisan and Iyar had 30 days, right? So the 50th day, if we count 50 days, we're going to end up on the 5th of Sivan, of Sivan. If, let's say, they both are only having 29 days, then it'll be on the 7th of Sivan, right? So here you have the month of Shavuos, which has no absolute date. Now, again, just so you understand, nowadays we have a set calendar. But that's, like I say, that's a whole different story. But according to the Torah, there is no set calendar. Each month, Rosh Chodesh is designated independently. Okay. When Mashiach comes, we're going to go back to that system. So when Mashiach comes, there will be times that both Nisan and Iyar have 30 days, and Shavuos will be the 5th of Sivan. Sometimes it'll be like it is with our calendar that we have today, where Nisan is 30, Iyar is 29, and then it's the 6th. But there might be times when they're both on the 20, they're both only 29, right? So the 50th is going to end up on the 7th of Sivan. That's absolutely 100% possible. Well, once we go back to the original system, which we will when we have a Sanhedrin and Mashiach comes and so on and so forth. So it's something really interesting about Shavuos. There's so many interesting things that to be discussed, but I'm actually gonna ask Rabbi Yitkin if I can make this share a little bit early. I'm seeing, because usually I see the girls are coming in and out the front. I'm in the parking lot looking at the back door where the girls go out to their bed. Anyway, so what was I saying? So here you have a very interesting thing, Shavuos, nothing to do with the day of the month, right? Now, everybody associates Shavuos with the giving of the Torah, right? That's what they told me in kindergarten, right? And that's what they're still telling the kids in kindergarten, that Shavuos is the day that's associated with the giving of the Torah. Not only that, when you open up your Siddur and you start davening the Yom Tov Shemona Esrei, and at one point we mentioned the holy day that we are celebrating, and then the Siddur tells us that what that holy day represents. So, for example, on Pesach, it's Man Cheruseinu. It's the time, it's the Yom Tov, and it represents, it's a time where we celebrate our freedom from Egypt. Comes Sukkot. The Torah tells us Sukkot is special holiday, especially when it comes to Simcha. What does the Siddur tell us? Zman Simchaseinu. Now, the giving of the Torah was on the 6th of Sivan. By the way, there's controversy about that too, but it was on a given day of Sivan. Let's go with the 6th of Sivan, right? But we just discussed that Shavuos is not necessarily tied to the 6th of Sivan. And yet, that's what they tell us in kindergarten, and that's even what it says in the Siddur. It says, Chag HaShavuos, Zman Simchoseinu. It says, Zman Matan Tereseinu.
Rabbi Deren, could you please unmute?
Yeah, my wife has just told me that she's coming out, so let me wrap this up, and the Mitzvah Hashem, maybe next year we could talk about this, so we can elaborate on this even more, because it'll still be, I think, before Shavuos. Okay. So there's really something very interesting, and by the way, it's so interesting that it's actually possible for a person to, according to Shulchan Aruch, have to celebrate Shavuos on a different day than everybody else in shul is keeping Shavuos. Okay, again, this is a perhaps a little bit more elaborate than I wanted to get into, but very shortly, because the mitzvah of Sfiras Eimer is not something that is done by the Beis Din, so to speak. It's done individually. Okay, like there are other things that we have to count. We have to count 6 years and then make the 7th year Shemitah. That's something that even today applies. Not all the rules of Shemitah apply today like they do at the times when there is a Beis Hamikdash, but the year Shemitah, it's a designated year, and we're still calculating which years are Shemitah, right? Yovel, we do not have any. That would be the 50th year. After 7 times Shemitah, then you have a double Shemitah. Okay, that was actually from, I think, was it this week's parsha? Last week's parsha? Whatever. But in any case, so we don't have this. When it comes to counting the Shvita, though, okay, so who counts the Shvita? Who has to keep track of where Shvita is? That's the Beis Din. They create a calendar, and then we get it in the mail, and then we follow whatever that calendar is, right? Not so Sfiras HaOmer. Sfiras HaOmer is an individual. It says Usfatem Lochem. Each and every one of you individually should count 50 days to know when is going to be Shavuos. It's possible for a person to have a different calculation, and that has to do with the fact that the world is round. And being that the world is round, right, circles don't have beginnings and don't have ends. So at what point, when the sun rises, is it a new day? Where is that? So there is a place. But the bottom line is, if you cross that line, you're either jumping ahead a day or you're doubling your day. Regardless of what's going on, you can't count the day that you didn't experience. Right? Or you can't throw in an extra if you didn't experience it, right? Or if you missed it, you can't make up for it. So if you cross the date line, for example, and you fly to Australia, and you went through the Pacific by crossing the date line, if you go the other way, you will have experienced on that day that you lost or that you gained, but not if you cross the date line. You're going to have a different Shavuos. You're going to have a totally different Shavuos, different day. This is real. This is absolutely real. It's the halacha, and I've seen it applied. I've seen it applied literally, where the Rav Paskind for a certain individual. I can even tell you, somebody here in Pittsburgh once it happened, and they had to keep Shavuos at a different day. Normally you try to avoid that. Right, so you don't go across the date line during the days of Sfiras Eimer. But for a woman, or this was in the time it was a seminary girl, right? So they're not that so particular, because like it's not an issue of when you should put on tefillin, you should put on tefillin, you don't put on tefillin, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Women don't have that mitzvah, so whatever they do or don't do, right, for Shavuos, it's not going to affect any actual mitzvah d'oraisa. So you don't work an extra day. You don't turn on the lights an extra day or something like that. It doesn't really affect anything. It does, though, for a man who has to put on tefillin if it's not Shavuos, right? Anyway, it's real. It's a real thing. So Batsheva and Bracha are walking towards the car. So we're gonna have to submit to Hashem. I'm gonna just give a little synopsis over here about what I want to continue and what this has to do with the hidden dimension. The Rebbe points out, based on this halachic quirk, let's say, right, where shuls can be different for two different individual people, dependent on the fact that one of them crossed the date line during Sfira Sa'imer, right? So Rebbe points out that there's a interesting hidden dimension, not just to the Yid that we spoke about. There's also a hidden dimension to the Torah as well, which is not surprising because the Torah reflects the Jew and the Jew reflects the Torah. There's this hidden dimension of the Torah, and that hidden dimension of the Torah connects to the hidden dimension of the Jew. Okay, to put it, in a what's it called, in a I guess a flow chart or whatever. The mitzvahs that we do, that's the revealed dimension of Torah, right? And that corresponds to the revealed. Why isn't it opening? But okay, so that corresponds to the revealed dimension of the Torah. But then we have that hidden dimension of the Jew, and that parallels the hidden dimension of the Torah. And Amir Hashem, Chaim, if I may, I'm going to hand it over to you now. And
so we're going to connect the two things you just mentioned. One thing, the Dateline with Rabbi Yoel Khan, one of your favorite.
Right. So you tell that whole story. You can tell that whole story now.
That story.
But my family's getting into the car now.
Thank you, Rabbi Deren.
We're heading to the Eihel for Shabbos and Hashem. Yeah, is the door open? One second.
Thank you, Rabbi Deren. Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It should be open. Yeah.
Okay. Shochet. Thank you, Rabbi Deren. We're going to say the story of Rabbi Yoel Khan. Most of you have heard of Rabbi Yoel Khan before. Here's Rabbi Yoel Khan. He was the Rebbe's chayzer, the Rebbe's human tape recorder on Shabbos and Yom Tov by a Fabrengen. The Rebbe could speak for many hours, say a deep maimer, say a sicha. You needed someone who both could understand and could repeat the words verbatim, and that was Rabbi Yoel Khan, one of the deepest people understand Chassidus definitely of this generation. So Rabbi Yoel Khan he lived in Crown Heights, and he had a guest who came for Shavuos. And this guest who came for Shavuos, he didn't know. He was someone who was a little bit, involved, but not so involved. And he came from Australia or Hong Kong, and he came for Shavuos, came to New York, and he ended up staying by Rabbi Yoel Khan. This is in the year 1961. Shavuos was on a Sunday. So in Eretz Yisrael, Shavuos is only one day. But in Chutz La'aretz, say in the US, Shavuos is 2 days, Sunday and Monday. Shabbos is Erev Shavuos. So even in Eretz Yisrael, you have 2-day Yom Tov, and then outside of Eretz Yisrael, you'll have a 3-day Yom Tov. There was a Jew from Eretz Yisrael, from Israel, who stayed by Rabbi Yoel Khan for Shavuos, for Shabbos and for Shavuos. And he told him offhandedly that he came from Japan. Rabbi Yoel Khan heard it, and he realized there must be an issue, because as Rabbi Deren just stated, when you cross over the date line, you have to keep an extra day of Shavuos, one way or the other, a day on, a day off. So I told him that you actually have a halachic problem, a halachic issue. What day you have to keep Shavuos? The Rebbe explained in one of the earlier years before that by Shavuos Farbrengen how Shavuos does not go according to the calendar, but it goes according to every individual. If a person counted 50 days, 50 sunrises and 50 sunsets, regardless of what day it is in the place you are when you get there. So if you cross a date line, you could be one day off. If for whatever reason you went around the world over and over, your Shavuos could be on a different day, 2-3 days off. And Shavuos is an individual Yom Tov, and that's what makes a Yom Tov, every individual's personal count, not when the Yom Tov, the holiday Shavuos comes, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach. So according to you, according to where you were when Pesach started, and according to how you traveled, you need 50 sunrises and sunsets in order to come into Shavuos. The Rebbe didn't speak about the halacha. The Rebbe just mentioned it. Later on, the Rebbe spoke very at length what the halacha, what should be done. But this person, this Jew from Israel, who came to New York, but he came through Japan for Shavuos. For him, Yom Tov is not on Sunday, since he's coming from Israel. It only has one day of Yom Tov. But for him, Yom Tov should be on Shabbos, which is Hey Sivan. So before Sunday and Monday for him should not be Shavuos anymore. Now this is already late Shabbos afternoon. It was too late to ask a Rav what should be done. And he explained to the guest, and he told him that according to me, you should daven, or it's actually a Friday night, you should daven the Ma'ariv of Shabbos and Yom Tov. And when you make Kiddush, you should mention Shabbos and Yom Tov. The Rebbe didn't yet explain exactly where he holds in this entire discussion and debate. It was still something that was being, you could say, discussed among many poskim at that time, among many Rabbanim at that time. So I said, Riel Khan says, I told the guest, let's wait, let's ask the Rebbe, let's hear something directly from the Rebbe what to do. And then we'll go according to that. Said tomorrow, Shabbos morning, you should stand in 770 as the Rebbe walks into Shul. Try standing in the front row of people. And as the Rebbe is telling everyone, good Shabbos, so then tell the Rebbe 2 words. I came, I tell him in Hebrew, Bati mi Japan. I came from Japan. Just say those 2 words to the Rebbe. So that's what he did. He stood in the Shul Shabbos morning as waiting for the Rebbe to walk by, and Rabbi Elkan stood next to him. He wanted to see how the Rebbe will react. The Rebbe went by, and the Rebbe told everybody, as he would say, good Shabbos. And the Jew told the Rebbe, I came from Japan. And so the Rebbe told him, good Shabbos, good Yom Tov, just like that. Then the Rebbe continued walking, and the Rebbe turned around, and then the Rebbe told him, have an exciting, a happy, exciting too, but happy, receiving of the Torah. He didn't understand what that means. When the Rebbe is telling him in Yiddish, Afreiliche Kabbalah Satira. So, but Rabbi Elkan explained to him, the Rebbe told you that today for you today, Shabbos is your day of Shavuos, it's your Yom Tov. You have to keep it as a Yom Tov. But for himself, Rabbi Elkan wondered. The Rebbe told him, have a happy Kabbalah Satira receiving of the Torah. So he understands that the Yom Tov, the actual holiday of Shavuos, goes according to the person's personal 50th day. So if you cross a date line, it's possible that you could be on a different count than everyone else. It's a Shulchan Aruch. But in Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, it also says that the word Zman Matan Teresenu, the day of the giving of the Torah, you say only on Vav Sivan, the 6th of Sivan, because that was the day the Torah was given. So in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when, like Rabbi Deren mentioned, it wasn't, sometimes Shavuos could be on a different day, not necessarily the 6th of Sivan, it could be on the 5th, it could be on the 7th, depending how many days the month of Nisan and the month of Iyar, it had 29 days or 30 days, both 29, both 30, or 129, 130. So it's possible that Shavuos could fall out in the times of the Beis HaMikdash on the 6th of Sivan, or on the 5th, or on the 7th. So you only say Zman Matan Torah Seinu on the 6th of Sivan. Nowadays, Shavuos always comes out to be on the 6th of Sivan, so we say Zman Matan Torah Seinu, and outside of Israel we say for 2 days because of Sveika D'Yoma. And that's the Nusach. So according to this, we see these 2 separate parts, according to what it says in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. There's 2 separate aspects of Shavuos. One is that it's the 50th day from the counting of the Omer. Second thing is it's a day of receiving of the Torah, which Matan Torah was on the 6th of Sivan. And they're 2 separate things, which you could have one without the other. So Rabbi Elkan was wondering, and he said his guest, who came from Eretz Yisrael, came from Israel, he crossed the date line. So for him, his 50th day is Hey Sivan, which was Shabbos. Why is the Rebbe wishing him a freilich Kabbalah Torah, a joyous receiving of the Torah, if according to Shulchan Aruch, it only takes place on the 6th of Sivan and not on a different day? So he thought about that to himself. He didn't tell anybody. That night, Matzah Shabbos, which for him, for Yabil Khan and everyone in America, it's the first night of Shavuos. Everyone stays up that night. But for the Jew from Eretz Yisrael, who came through Japan, for him it was already after Shavuos. So that Matzah Shabbos, that night, he gets a message from someone that the secretaries of the Rebbe want to see you, and he came into the Rebbe secretaries, and he gets a message, the Rebbe wants to see you right now. And he was, of course, shocked. You don't usually get called into the Rebbe unless something extraordinary, but he gets called into the Rebbe. So the Rebbe asked him, is that person who came from Japan, is he staying by you? So he told the Rebbe yes. The Rebbe says, you have to learn with him, teach him halachas, how he should act on these days. He should daven, tonight is Matzah Shabbos, he should daven a weekday Ma'ariv. Because since he comes from Eretz Yisrael, he only has to keep 1 day of Yom Tif, and it's no longer Yom Tif for him. Yom Tif for him was on Shabbos. He should daven a weekday Ma'ariv. He should make Havdalah like he makes in a regular Matzah Shabbos with a fire and besamim. But since he's a guest by me and we do Yom Tif, so during Bari Meira Eish, he should not bring his hands close to the fire. So he shouldn't be boilet. He shouldn't be conspicuous. How he's for him, he's not keeping Yom Tif. The next day, Sunday morning, tell him to put on tefillin. So for everyone else, it's the first day of Yom Tif. Tell him to put on tefillin. He asked the Rebbe, should we put on him with a bracha? And the Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe says, according to the way I see it, according to the halacha, he has to put on tefillin. So if he has to put on tefillin, that means he has to make a bracha, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav, that Hashem commanded us to put on tefillin. Of course, he makes a bracha. So then I asked the Rebbe, should he say Zman Matan Torah Seinu, the time of the giving of our Torah, because it's after all the 6th of Sivan. The Rebbe says it's halacha and shulchan aruch, meaning the Rebbe says that it's Zman Matan Torah Seinu, the time of the giving of the Torah, and he doesn't have to. And he didn't have to say that during his Yom Tif. So his question got even stronger than him. So why did the Rebbe wish him a freiliche, a joyous Kabbalah Torah, if on Hey Sivan, the 5th of Sivan, is not even Matan Torah, according to what it says in Shulchan Aruch. The day of the giving of a Torah is 6th of Sivan, and for this person, for him, the 5th of Sivan was Yom Tif, not to do malacha. So the question got even stronger in his mind, but he didn't ask it. He just thought about it to himself. On the second day of Yom Tiv, which is Monday, and the end of the day, there was a fabrengen, where the Rebbe would fabreng with everyone, wash his hands 4 times a year, give a koshel bracha at the end, on the second day of Shavuos. And the Rebbe spoke about the Matan Torah at the fabrengen. One of the things he said, Matan Torah has 2 aspects to it. You have how Torah was revealed. The revealed part of Torah is connected to a date, 6th of Sivan. And then there's another part of Torah which is not connected to a date. There's a part of Torah which is connected to the fact that we finished counting 49 days of the Omer. Because the 49 days of Sfiras HaOmer, each day we work on ourselves. Each day we bring down a different sphera, a different level of godliness, and that affects the way a person serves Hashem. On the 50th day, we come to the Shara Chamishim, the 50th gate of Bina. We reach beyond our highest efforts, and we bring down a much higher aspect. But the Rebbe said something new, that when the Torah, the Jews were able to receive after Matan Torah, is different than the Torah that Hashem gave them. Hashem gave them a Torah far beyond what the Jews were able to handle at that point, because he gave them something which wasn't even connected to what they did, but rather he gave them an infinite Torah which connects to an infinite Hashem. That's connected to the 6th of Sivan. That we say is Zman Matan Torah Seinu. There's another aspect of Torah that's still somehow connected to every single person individually, and therefore if a person works and toils, they could receive that aspect of Torah. That aspect of Torah is revealed on the 50th day of the counting of the Omer. After 49 days, it comes on the 50th day, when you finish your effort of receiving the Torah. So then he understood what the Rebbe's, when the Rebbe wished this Jew from Israel came to New York through Japan, and the Rebbe wished him a freiliche Kabbalas HaTorah, a happy receiving of the Torah, because now he understood that the Rebbe divided receiving the Torah into two parts. First, he told him, Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tiv. Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tiv, meaning today is Shabbos. He told him Good Shabbos. Then he told him Good Yom Tiv. The Rebbe did not mention at all that it's a day of the giving of the Torah, because the essence of Torah, which is what it says in Shulchan Aruch, that we say is Man Matan Torah Seinu in davening, that is connected to the 6th of Sivan. And the 5th of Sivan is lahalacha, you cannot say Zman Matan Torah Seinu, the day of the giving of the Torah. So then, after the Rebbe wished this Jew Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tiv, the Rebbe walked off, and then the Rebbe came back, and then the Rebbe wished this Jew a freiliche Kabbalas HaTorah, a joyous receiving of the Torah. Meaning, after the Rebbe walked away and came back, to tell you that this aspect of receiving of the Torah is not the part of the way we receive the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, but rather it's a way of receiving the Torah, where how every Jew has their own connection, their own portion of the Torah, and therefore it's sort of an extra thing, like a novelty. So we see from this story the exact detail which goes into every single thing that the Rebbe did, even a small detail, wishing someone a Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tiv, and then going back, how it fits according to halacha, and also according to the source of the thing. So we should have a good Shabbos, and coming up to Lag BaOmer should be a very good Yom Tiv as well. And we should already this year, the entire world, not just Eretz Yisrael, should all have one day of Yom Tiv. And whether it will be on the 6th of Sivan or on the 7th of Sivan remains to be seen, because we should have a Beis HaMikdash with the Sanhedrin, who decides when is Rosh Chodesh according to witnesses, and then the whole entire world will be celebrating one day of Shavuos, one day of Yom Tiv, and not just for the Jews of Eretz Yisrael. So with this, I wish everybody